All right, guys, I'll kind of get into our midline, both double and triple elements here. I'll start with the triple side of it, okay? And then I added a couple passes on the end. Uh, so why, you know, for everything you do, you got to have a little bit of a why, right? So why are we? Well, all right, so a little cut off there, right? But talking about why we're gonna run our midline triple, right? Our base is our inside beer, generally reading the defensive end, changing up the keys and stuff like that. So midline allows us to again change the keys, right? Keep the defense guessing, right? Not running the same play over and over again, right? It allows us to have a quick play, right? A quick read that our quarterbacks know really well, our offensive line knows really well, our skill guys know really well. This goes in day one in training camp, right? So these guys have put this thing in 7, 8 times throughout their career, and they've run it a lot, right? So it's a quick read that these guys know really well, right? And it really does, the way we do it, it really does affect all 3 levels to our advantage, right? So the old adage of you can't block them, read them, right? If we have a good defensive lineman, a good interior defensive lineman, okay, this allows us to get him involved and do some of the stuff he's not necessarily used to, right? Some of the twirl motion that we'll use here, right, gives the ties down those linebackers, right? It does not allow them to on this play, and then obviously plays, after this, right, to be able to flow hard with our motion because they have to be able to recognize and slow their feet down and tie them down a little bit, right? And then it does give the secondary players who are maybe reading their slots a little bit of a false key where you'll see, right, it is false motion, twirl motion going one way, and then the play's hitting right back downhill at them right away, right? It does allow us to stretch this ball horizontally and get this ball on the edge, right? If this thing gets pitched, it is on the edge quickly, right? And it really stresses the defense where they have to be able to account for 53 and a third right away, okay? Because these guys can get on the edge quick. And it does, again, it makes it very difficult to be able to be gap sound and be able to, all right, I'm thinking I'm a dive player, but now I'm a pitch player because it's midline and have these guys, guessing, and these defensive ends who can give us some issues kind of guessing. Right. So we're talking about our midline triple here. We'll start with the O-line rules, okay, and then kind of work our way to the to the skills, right? And I don't know who, if there's anyone. This is a very similar clinic Coach Kickle did at the Ohio clinic a couple weeks ago. So apologize if anyone is watching this that saw that, right? It's going to be a pretty similar deal, but with my perspective, right? So offensive line's rules, right? I teach front side, back side, right? So we're talking here, front side tackle, right? He knows, right, where the dive key is, where the pitch key is, depending on the front, which we'll kind of get to here in a second, right? Offense, play side tackle, right? He's ollie outside release, right, to the first linebacker over to backside, right? So that's a little bit of a pure memorization, right? I am over to backside on the second level, okay? Second to third level, really, which you'll see here on the clip, right? Release to the outside leverage of the defender in front of me, right? So my assignment is first over to backside, right? Now my technique is outside leverage of the defender in front of me to the linebacker on the second level, and then my technique to block him on the second level, right? This third bullet point here I'll get to as a little bit of a segment, right? If that pitch key hangs on, right, we know they're in a gap exchange, okay? We teach that on the fly. I'm going to keep him covered up and keep him moving, right? So if by my third step is the play side tackle, right, I know that, hey, this guy's still got hands on me. I'm going to re-engage with him and take him where he wants to go because we now know this ball is getting pitched out on the edge, right? And we're able to just keep this guy moving, okay? Play side guard, right? Veer, inside release. First linebacker over to backside, okay? Inside release, that is the dive key, right? If I am covered, a 2, a 2-eye, a 3, that is the dive key, right? So I've got to veer underneath of it, right? In no way, if I've got inside technique, right, and I just can't just wash that thing down inside, okay? I've got to be able to get underneath of it, right? If I can't get there, my veer will help get underneath of it enough that it'll create space in the play. Even if I don't get clean through there, right? That will do enough for the play, right? If I'm uncovered, right? I'm going to lead release, right? Step straight forward, right? First linebacker over to backside. If he flows to the front side of the play, I know I got my tackle out there who can take care of that, right? I'm not chasing. I'm going to get my snap my eyes and go backside. Okay. Looking from the backside, right? Center to backside tackle. Okay. If the center's covered, right? Generally the guard is uncovered, right? They're going to double together, right? To that nose, that zero nose, to the backside backer, right? On the previous clinic, I talked a little bit about of the work between the guard and the center, right? That was really more on triple plays and stuff like that on a outside track, a B gap, C gap, D gap track. For this midline A gap track, these guys are really trying to true almost zone double it back to the backside backer, right? If the center's uncovered, the same two guys are now working together, right? But the technique changes, right? So the guard is now basically basing through, and that centers the added element to the backside backer, A gap to climb. Center's always stepping away when he's uncovered to create that space to let the play side guard create that space to get underneath of it. Okay. Play side tackle, right, is a gap still hinge, pull down anchor as we describe it, right? We're responsible for ultimate B gap defender. So if he's got, 5 technique, linebacker stacked behind him, right? He's playing with his eyes up, knowing if this linebacker runs, B gap linebacker runs through the gap, he's got to cut that and secure that B gap on the backside, right? If he stays back, and that defensive end is that C gap, is that ultimate B gap defender, he cuts him off and make sure he takes care of that. Okay, right? So some of the fronts here, right? From an O-line perspective, right? It's the center, is really understanding is, I'm covered, not a guy stacked behind me. That's that type of defense, right? I'm covered, another guy stacked behind me. That's that set of rules. I'm uncovered, but I'm covered on the second level. I'm uncovered, and I am uncovered on the second level, right? So he kind of runs the show, right, in terms of understanding of what each defense is and what the slight subtle differences are, between a 3-4, a 5-3, and our 2 4-down defenses that we have listed here. Okay. You can see here, right? In a guard uncovered world, right? That 4-eye 4 technique is the dive key. The next man outside of him is the pitch key. In a 4-man front, that 3 technique, that 2-eye is our dive key. That 5 or 4, whatever it is, outside of him, right? Hand in the ground, hand off the ground, doesn't matter, right? It's where they are, where they're on. Okay. The one variation that our tackles run into a lot is when we get gap exchange, okay? Is that 5 technique is going to sit there, right, and try and ride him out, right, and try and mess with the gaps, right? So our tackles are taught, okay, like I said earlier, right, if we get pressure from that third or fourth step by that 5 technique, I am now sit on it and pin him, right? Pin him, take him where he wants to go, okay? It's, better off to kind of show this on the tape, okay? So here, right, left tackle, guards down. He's going out. He's kind of reaching for it. He's fighting for it a little bit here, okay? But he knows what's coming, right? So this guy's riding him out. He's going to sit there, pin it down, because he now knows. Let me move this around. He now knows, right? They're gap exchanging. So he becomes really a B gap player. Quarterback's going to pitch off this guy, get the ball in the perimeter, okay, and get the thing going. Right? So that's one caveat we have to teach our tackles. This is a really good job on the backside, right? by this center and guard, understanding I'm underneath, lifting this through to this backside backer, this spot. If he wants to play himself out of the play, fantastic. We'll take that all the time. Right? You can tell I'm a line guy because I play the tight first, right? Now you can see we're pitching off the mic. Tackle takes the 5 technique, which was the original pitch key. Receiver takes this guy, slot, front side slot off his twirl, is to the corner, right? We've got everyone accounted for, right? The first unaccounted for player in this case, again, is the backside safety, right? Which we're going to have to beat with our speed. Right? Again, to an open side, 2 receivers over the top. Okay. Front side tackle, right? Not the cleanest thing, but he knows what he's trying to do, right? He knows he's trying to ride me out. He just stays physical with him and just takes him where he wants to go. He pushes him out, and the slot sees it and gets up underneath of it. Okay. So I teach these guys, as long as they're being physical and they're keeping this guy moving and staying engaged, the athletes behind us will make us right. Right. One last clip of it here. Right. Good job by 60 here. He's getting around it. I think this is the 3rd or 4th time of it in the game, but really good job of quarterback pulling it out. 27 attacks, pitches, gets out on the edge, right? And we're able to get positive yardage on a pretty decent play there. Okay.